Okay, this video is an experiment on several levels, some of which are technical, so I won't go into those. But windows open, it's the temperature is dropping, it's in the 60s outside, so. But the subject of the video is also going to be an experiment. I think I mentioned that in the late 90s, well, I'd gotten to the level of sewing, I still was learning. I got to the level of sewing where commercially made patterns for doll clothes were not what I wanted to make, like the Simplicity, the McCall's, the Butterick doll patterns like that. They were either, well, since that was really before computers got into everything, they were still republishing stuff like from the 80s or even the 70s, I recognized it from my youth, or they were just geared for people who wanted to sew doll clothes just to get them out of the way. They weren't detailed, they weren't well fitted, they weren't what I wanted to sew. But I didn't have the confidence yet in my ability to draft doll clothes patterns. So what I did was I would get a sewing pattern, just grab this one because it's on my desk, and I would scan the pattern piece layout guides, which would be these things, which are actual drawings, the pattern pieces. I don't know if this lighting is better. And so I scanned these, and then I'd figure out like how big the doll's measurements were, like how many inches you needed across the front of the shirt for it to fit, and then add a little bit for wear ease and a little bit for seam allowances, and I would enlarge the scanned image to that, print it out, see if it worked, and go around and around adjusting size and altering the pattern. Some of them worked, if they weren't particularly fitted, like jackets and coats and things, they worked pretty well, just scan and enlarge. Some things like shirts I had to really tweak a lot, and that's what helped me learn how to make doll patterns, or at least give an idea of what I needed to do for a doll pattern, and then I would sew that experiment, and then it would be wrong, but then I would start tweaking things to make it work. So I randomly remembered one pattern that I tried to sew once. I think I got halfway through sewing it, said no, and just abandoned the project. I don't think I ever finished it. I think I still have the pattern. It would be in here, so I'm going to look for it. This is my not as often used doll patterns box. My often used doll patterns box is this one, which my system's not that great. I just put things in envelopes, and I do rough sketches and names on the envelopes of what's in them, and then jam more envelopes in here, and I have a few things in the back that aren't even envelopes at all. These are the ones I use fairly often. 6 scale, and then like I said, the overflow is in here. This is where my 60 centimeter and 45 centimeter and 15-inch doll clothes patterns are, as well as my less often used 6 scale doll clothes. So I think the pattern I'm thinking of is still in here, in the depths of the 6th scale. And a lot of the stuff in here, you see there's quite a bit in here, is from when I used to do 6th scale female action figure stuff, so it's a little big for Barbie size. And, oh yeah, that's one I want to. This is my envelope full of things that I want to turn into patterns to share eventually. So I was thinking about one of these I want to share eventually. Anyway, this is what I'm looking for. So this was a pattern from the 70s that I thought would be fun for dolls. But the original pattern called for making out of knits. So I wanted to keep it accurate to the pattern and also make it out of knits. And as I recently discovered, my propensity for using cheap thread led to me not doing very well sewing knits for dolls. That's also back when I was a lot more concerned about getting the scale just right. So when I tried to make it, I used really thin knits, and that combined with my lack of experience and the crummy thread, it's like I said, I got partway through this project and said, no. So I thought I would maybe see if I can do it any better now that I am better. See my terrible drawing. So I'm going to get in here and see what the pattern pieces look like, if I think maybe I have a chance. Or if it was just way too optimistic, even at making this for dolls at any skill level. So the main feature was it could be made with contrasting materials or single material. Let's see. Yeah, there is a seam down the center front, and there's the inset, which I believe this part was gathered to this edge, and for whatever reason I decided to draw on the back the direction, the grain direction. One thing about scanning vintage patterns for this is the things on the pattern piece guide are literally the pattern pieces. On modern pattern piece guides, they don't have markings on them. You're supposed to refer to the table below to see what piece 1, 2, 3, and 4 are, but the old ones actually have markings on it. So I thought I would see either if I can handle knits better, or if it's for dolls, maybe it will work with a woven. But I thought I'd make a video trying it so you can see how I sew. I don't know if I would ever share this, because it's probably going to be kind of infuriating, because it is fiddly, but I don't know. And now let's go over and look into the drawer full of doll knits and see if anything strikes my fancy for this dress. Which I'm not sure, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to do it in contrast, at least not this time. This is just to see if I can even do it. Alright, going over there. Alright, into the drawer of doll knits, which is the bottom drawer. And let's see. I want something fairly sturdy, but not too thick. So that's probably going to be a cotton knit, but I'm not sure. And yes, there are probably some of you who just want to get in here and dig around. And like I said, this drawer was the one that I made all those clothes last week because this one would squeak if you're trying to push everything back in. It's still pretty crowded. These are too synthetic slippery. This, I think, is too... This is fairly sturdy, but it's a 4-way stretch. So I don't think that would be appropriate. The other thing is, I mean, designed in the 70s for knit, that would have been intended for a double knit, so I know it wouldn't need a lot of stretch on a human thing. So I probably can get away with making this out of something other than a knit, but I want to do it right, but I can't possibly do it right because I'm doing a miniature version of what it's supposed to be, but I want to at least nod in the direction of doing it right. So what do I want to use? This is another 4-way stretch. I don't think I want to use a 4-way stretch. I don't want to use anything too thin or too thick. This could take the most of the video. Just going through here. Of course, I could always speed things up if needed. Come on, find something. See, actually, usually I pick out the cloth first and then decide what I'm going to make with it. So having the pattern first is backwards for me, and as you can see, it's leading to being horribly overwhelmed by choice. Those are 4-way stretch. You know what? I know I discounted this before because it has multi-directional stretch, but I think there's enough of this left to do it. We'll go see. Okay, put this on my cutting mat. Alright, is this tall enough for that? It is just barely. I guess I shouldn't So normally I happily cut things that just barely big enough, and then I improvise around the parts that are just a little bit too short. You never know because it's in the seam allowance, but again, this is something I've never done before, so maybe I should take some care. Again, taking care, not something I do a lot. Trying to find grain. Getting things on the grain does, I'd say it makes more of a difference with doll clothes because they're so small. But it does make a difference with human clothes because there's so much more fabric, so learn what grain is and follow it. Yeah, there's only one set of pinholes in this, so I really did only cut stuff out with it once way back when. Oh yeah, apparently this also had a collar that I didn't even sketch, probably because at the time I thought there was no way I would be able to handle a collar like that. At least I'm pretty sure this was made for knits. Because I know the one I tried to make in the 90s they used to knit, so I wouldn't do that for fun. And the pattern does have lines on it to show where notches should be, which would probably be helpful. Alright, I'm going to cut out what I have pinned now. Listen to the sounds of heavy equipment outside. And I already know this is going to turn out so weird. Because my seam allowance is going to pretty much take up that entire bit. Like I said, this might turn into something that I sew halfway and then toss, like I did in the 90s. But this will answer the question, whatever that question was, about whether or not it's the pattern a bad idea. I'm pretty sure, not to sound like I'm bragging, I'm pretty sure I'm good at sewing doll clothes now. I don't know. I do know that although there are a lot of markings on this pattern, it does not mark darts. And I would suspect there's supposed to be a dart in the back there. But I don't know. I'm making it as it is. I mean, there's definitely supposed to be a dart here, because that's what that pointy thing is. That's where the dart is. Like also, you can see where there's like an odd lump on this side of the sleeve. That's because there's supposed to be a dart there too, because things in the 60s and 70s were often hyper-fitted compared to what they would become in the 80s and 90s. And now the tight fit on things comes from being made of stretchy cloth that they couldn't even dream of when this pattern was made. The fact that there needs to be a dart in the elbow here. Like if this kind of works and I decide to work it into a pattern that I can use more often, again, I don't know if I share or not, I would probably straighten out the sleeve and eliminate the dart. But as it is, I'm going to put a little clip at the highest point of the dart so that when it's ready to sew, I will fold it along that clip and sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance dart around it. Alright. Do I have enough? I think I have enough. Yeah, there's enough if I fold strategically. I don't even have to flip it and have it going the other direction. Knits have a subtle nap to them. Nap is when there's a direction. The directional print is when the print itself has an up and down, and nap is when the cloth itself has an up and down. And I see cat hair because there's so much bright light. And knit Like corduroy and velvet have really pronounced nap. If you take a piece of corduroy or velvet, cut it, and then turn the same piece over and put it next to the unturned piece, they will look like they're different colors because they are physically reflecting the light differently because the pile of the fur. The pile, the nap of the cloth just does that. So you have to be careful of nap. Knit's nap is a lot more subtle, but it does have it. It's probably not going to be really obvious in a print like this, but if you have a solid color knit, it could make a difference in the finished product. Maybe. Something to think about. Alright, so I'm going to find where the point of the dart is, and I'm going to make a bigger cut because the bust dart is going to be bigger than the elbow dart. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and see if there's enough to cut out this collar. Alright, and then these were the facings, which I'm going to considerably expand the size of these because right now the seam allowance is going to take up about that much of it, which means you're going to have a tiny bit of it to flip back around, and that's not going to make a stable facing. So, let's see, I think there's enough to cut the front facing out here. Let's see, I think I figured out earlier that they go out like that. But you know what, I might go ahead and cut this as a single piece. Because that'll make it easier when it comes to improvising the extended width. Alright, these are going to overlap by a seam allowance, which I'm going to estimate here. And probably get way off, and when I try to attach this to the dress, if I have not, at that point, screamed and cried and thrown everything away. And I will discover that I estimated the wrong size. Anyway, slightly confused, but I don't stop. So you guys think I'm good? I'm just stubborn. Can you see what I'm doing? Alright, so pretty sure this, I forgot to cut a notch there, I cut a slight notch in. So this will be sewn to this with some, pretty sure some gathering at the bottom, but maybe not. And then, of course these are doubled up on each other. The backs will be sewn like I'm pretty sure, yeah, no question about it. There is supposed to be a dart back here. I don't know if you can see how much wider this one is than that one. And also that's where the notches meet up. So yes, there is absolutely supposed to be a dart back here. Back darts usually go pretty high. So I'm going to do that. So that will be darted, and there's going to be a dart there too. And then this unit and this unit will get sewn together at the shoulder. Then I will attempt the collar, and then that collar and, oh, okay, before doing the collar, the front has to be sewn together along the center front seam. Then I will sew the facing a little bit along the center front seam, and then sew that, sandwiching the collar with the front, and then I will do the sleeves, which they're little dart at the elbow, and then it's, top stitch things as needed, sewing the side seams, sewing the hem, sewing the back closure, good old hook and loop tape, and sewing the back seam, and that'll be done. So it's not going to be that easy, but I'm going to take a break, and we're going to do that later. Okay, it is the next day. Now I'm gonna see if I can sew this. And I honestly have no idea one way or another whether I'm confident it's going to work or whether I'm confident it's going to be a failure. So let's find out. Okay, so when I first had the idea of bringing the camera over here and trying dolls on, I thought, well, I would show that this obviously doesn't fit a normal Barbie, original, whatever you call it, but surely it'll fit Kirby. Well, the thing is, when I got out my normal, original, whatever you call it, fit model, I realized the arm length, that's not going to fit Kirby either. Like I said, I think I said at some point that it's possible that what I'd made wasn't even 6th scale. I mean, maybe it could fit on Kirby with shorter sleeves, but this garment is not 6th scale, so I don't think, though, that it's 1/4 scale either, because then the sleeves are too short. That means if it's not 12 inch and it's not 16 inch, it's going to be 14 inch. I only have one 14 inch doll who is not a Moxie Teens or a standard 14 inch. And even if this fits her, even if this was amazing, which it's not, I would put her back in this dress immediately that Lauren made sent, because this dress is perfect on this doll. But let's see if this monstrosity I just made at all fits tan line crystal. And no, I'm not going to take your shoes off, unless I absolutely have to. Yeah, it might be a little too small to go over her hands because she doesn't have tiny little fashion doll hands. She has doll hands, I if that makes sense. Which is why it would have been better if it was like 16-inch, because Tula Bell's hands come off. Let's see, your hands are fine with this squish. Alright, now I'm being stubborn. Alright, it's on this foot inside out. That's just this hand. Alright, other hand. Can you squish? Enough. Come on, I see the thumb. We can do this. Do I have the camera aimed? No. You see me struggling, but not what with. I said this video was an experiment. Okay. On over that hand. Alright. Okay, you know what? On a body that it fits, I take it back. It's not a monstrosity. It's actually kind of cute. It might have been cuter without the collar. But like I said, I was just throwing it all at the wall to see what would stick. I mean, it would probably fit a Moxie Teens better, since the Moxie Teens have more fashion doll proportions. Well, Crystal here is a little more doll-like. Fashion doll people know what I mean, right? There's dolls and there's fashion dolls. It's different. Now yeah, where I guessed the elbow dart would go, lined up fairly well with where the doll's elbows are. Yeah, this is coming unstitched there, which would be easy enough to stitch back together if I wanted to. Okay, so yeah, that the print's not great, but yeah, that is actually cuter than I thought it would be, finished and on a doll. And if I had been able to stick with this and finish sewing this back in the 90s, I would have been so disappointed because there weren't. I mean, yes, Crystal here was around then, but not in my world. So my options then would have been Barbie, or maybe Gem. I don't know if Gem's not that much bigger than Barbie. Or squeeze it onto a Jean doll. But back into this because it's adorable. You know what? I am going to try it on Tula Bell, because her hands come off. And yes, the sleeves will be a little short, but I'm guessing the body, again, fashion doll proportions instead of doll proportions, it might work. Again, not taking the shoes off because I'm lazy. Stay down in her. Not down, Crystal. Actually, with the stretch in the sleeves, they're almost long enough. So, you know what? I'm going to say that works for her. So, yeah, I'm going to either tack down or more likely carefully remove this collar, restitch. See, this is coming unstitched right here from squeezing over Crystal's hands. Maybe give her a lot of bracelets to hide that little gap in the length. And yeah, I'm going to call this a dress for Tulabelle. As weird as it is. So I'll get pictures up for the, yeah, I really messed up that collar. Boy, do I have hangnails. So yeah, thank you for sticking with me through this experiment in making a dress and making a video, because I'm sure you'll notice this is edited and shot a little different from how I usually do things, but you know, always learning. And thanks for watching.